I'm John White. With me today is Dr. Richard Lee. Richard, welcome to Southwest Yard and Garden.
Thanks, John.
Richard is our extension weed specialist, and we're in the summer, and we've got a lot of summer weeds here before us. So you want to tell us what some of these multicolored things are we have here?
These multicolored things here. Well, this is a good site because we have really quite an array of weeds here. The first one that catches my attention is this little prostrate spurge. This is an annual. People want to call it a milkweed, John, because when you break it, it has milky juice that comes out. Some people can be sensitive to that, so you want to be careful when you start pulling the annual spurges, because if you get it in a cut or a scratch in your hand, it might cause some irritation. But it's a very, very common one. It's indicative of a stress situation, and if you look around, this turf does show signs of some stress. We've got a couple of other plants here, John. You see this light green-bladed grass. This is going to either be a crabgrass or it's going to be the southwestern cupgrass.
Okay.
The crabgrass is characterized by being able to root at the nodes. So as the plant grows longer on the ground, John, you'll see some of the nodes. As it spreads, it'll start to form some roots, and it allows it to attach to the soil and spread out. Whereas if it's the cupgrass, the leaves will stay almost a light yellowish green color, and they get quite wide, so it's very, very prominent a little bit later on in the growing season. The other one that we see here, we see some of the remnants of the annual bluegrass. It's already set seed. It's a winter annual grass, John, so he's already set seed. He's going away. And right here we also have a speedwell, which again is another winter annual broadleaf that germinated in the fall or grew through the winter months, took a good early start in the spring of the year, and has now set seed and gone away. These are probably the main ones we're going to have to deal with. I guess my big concern would be for the annual prostrate spurge, because it is really quite an invasive little guy in turf.
Now, management of these weeds, getting the grass back as a healthy stand would help a lot in improving this situation.
Oh, John, that's really primarily the first thing we need to do. When we look at a situation like this that shows signs of stress, or the weeds are starting to come in and the grass is being stressed out, the first thing you really do want to do is to manage the site. You want to start taking better care of it. You want to water it right, fertilize it right, use the correct cutting height, make sure that that grass is given the competitive edge. We know that a well-maintained lawn, John, goes a long ways toward keeping out a lot of these weeds. Right. So that's really the first thing we want to focus on.
Okay. We have a couple different weeds in another area. Let's go over and take a look at those. Richard, we've got a pretty good mat of something here. It looks like a pretty invasive weed.
John, this is probably the biggest problem we have in turf where it gets established in the southern part of the state. This is creeping chaffweed. It's a relative of the pigweed family, but unlike most of the pigweeds we contend with in our gardens, this is a creeping perennial. It has a very, very thick layer of cuticular waxes on the leaves, which gives it this glossy appearance. Makes it very, very difficult to manage as well. Where you get the creeping chaffweed growing, John, as it gets very dense, you'll find as you move it that there's nothing else growing underneath it, that it shades out and outcompetes any of the turf species.
Well, just watching it here, I can see how it's growing underneath the Bermuda.
Yep, it does a good job. Where it gets really, really dense, John, it'll even smother out the Bermuda grass and any other desirable vegetation that happens to be growing there.
What's our kind of bluish colored
Well, this is a real interesting plant because this is an indicator weed, John. The fact that we have this prostrate knotweed here is telling us that this particular site here is extremely stressed. And as we look a little bit further, you can see that it's probably in an area that's not getting very much moisture. The prostrate knotweed thrives on stress conditions. If you don't water it correctly, if it's compacted, overwatered, if you park your cars on top of the turf, this is one of the species that will come and do very, very well. Not very well, but this is one of the species that will come and invade the turf. If it's growing in your turf is telling you it needs attention.
Okay. So again, just good management practice help eliminate a lot of these problems.
Particularly the things like the prostrate knotweed and the spurges, yes. Now, the creeping chaffweed, you're going to have to go after it. It is a creeping perennial. The herbicides that are registered for turf don't offer very good control of this particular plant, John. So our concern is that we keep it from spreading. If I had a small infestation this size in my yard, I would focus on pulling it up every time I saw it
Or
growing.
digging it up.
Digging it up, but just not letting it grow. It's interesting, John, those are the little white seeds right there, have little hooks on them, and so they'll attach to your shoes, and that's how we're spreading it through the parks.
Okay. Well, we have a couple more weeds to look at that are pretty notorious in our area, so let's go take a look at them.
Okay?
Richard, looks like we have some of our more common weeds of the southern part of the state here.
John, these are probably two of the most troublesome weeds we have in the southern part of the state. We're looking at the Sandbur right here. Of course, this is when we all recognize it, John, when it's already set seed and those little birds get in your pant leg or in your shoe, or even maybe in your knee if you're not careful where you kneel. But we ought to recognize it when it looks like this, and that way we can get it pulled up before it's set seed. Once it's in this stage and it's already set seed, then you're pulling it up, you run the risk of spreading it. But if we can pull it up when it's in the seedling stage, we're doing a much better job. Now it is characterized, John, by having kind of a purple cast in the center. It does lay very flat on the ground with the ends branching up at maturation. And it does have more of an oval shaped stem rather than a round stem like some of our other grasses. This does prefer a sandy soil and low fertility, John, so if we have a Sandbur problem, chances are we've got a fertility problem as well. Okay. Now the other one we need to point out is the nutsedge that's right here. It's either going to be yellow or purple nutsedge, John, and it's hard to tell the difference unless you look at the seed head or the tubers, which are the main means by which we spread this plant. We spread the nutsedge, John, by bringing in the tubers when we bring in topsoil or bring in new plants and things like this. Now the nutsedge, John, is a sedge. It's not a grass or a broadleaf. It has a three-sided stem. So if you look here, you've got leaves that come out in three directions, one here, and one on this side. Very, very characteristic of the sedges. It also prefers sandy soils, prefers a lot of water. So if we're overwatering our turf, we run in the risk of increasing a nutsedge problem. Once it comes in, it spreads because it's a creeping perennial. Unlike the other plants we have seen, except for the creeping chaffweed, we talk primarily about annuals. The nutsedge is a creeping perennial, and if you look out here, you can see that it is just kind of spreading away from where we're standing.
Okay. Well, Richard, thank you very much for being on Southwest Yard and Garden and helping us with some of our weed identification. And if people do have additional weed problems, questions, they need to call their local county extension agent.